I think that the bees induce in people who are susceptible with a real reverence. And that's part of what I was trying to convey to the non-beekeepers.
Hello and welcome to the Notes from the Beeyard podcast, reflections on beekeeping and rural living written and read by Colorado beekeeper Tom Theobald. Tom has lived and kept bees in Niwot, Colorado for over 40 years, and for 27 of those years, from 1990 to 2016, he wrote a weekly column also called Notes from the Beeyard for a regional farm and ranch magazine. Tom's initial plan for Notes from the Beeyard was to document a single year in the life of a beekeeper. Swarms, working toward the honey flow, bears, and so on. Over time, it grew to hold much more. Notes from the Beeyard is about the joys and disappointments of beekeeping. It's about the Colorado landscape, friendship, the fabric of Western life, and the passage of time. My name is Laura Tyler. I'm your producer and host of Notes from the Beeyard podcast. I met Tom in 2000. He taught beekeeping to me and my husband, Andy, and over the years he's become a dear friend to us and many others in the Boulder County beekeeping community. Without further ado, this is episode 1 of Notes from the Beeyard, written and read by Colorado beekeeper Tom Theobald.
I am a beekeeper, one of a few hundred commercial operators and thousands of hobbyists. I ply my craft along the Front Range of the Rockies in Boulder County, Colorado. I never anticipated becoming a beekeeper. In fact, like many others, I put beekeepers in the same cubbyhole I reserve for lion tamers, snake charmers, and sword swallowers. But here I am, and here I've been for the past 16 years, immersed in a craft which captivated me from the first moment I came in contact with it. Humans have had a long association with the honeybee. No doubt we began to plunder the bees for their sweet treasure early in our history, but the oldest physical evidence comes from a rock shelter in eastern Spain dated at 7000 BC. This cave painting shows two individuals ascending a long ladder toward a hive. One carries a basket for comb and honey, and bees buzz around the heads of both. Yet while we have exploited honeybees from our tentative beginnings, any keeping of the bees was a very primitive affair, and for the past 3,000 years honey was a rare delicacy reserved for the wealthy and the powerful. It wasn't until the 1850s that fundamental discoveries were made which led to the emergence of beekeeping as we know it today. Only with these changes did the pleasures of honey come to be widely available to the average citizen. Interestingly, these discoveries coincided with the early settlement of Colorado, and because of this, beekeeping runs as an intricate strand through the growth of Colorado agriculture. The second thing I never anticipated becoming was a writer. Of course, the readers will be the judge of that. But as the beekeeping progressed, I found myself pulling up after a long, hot day under a favorite streamside tree to make a few notes in my journal. There are few crafts which draw one as intimately into the natural order of things as bees do. And even after years of beekeeping, I often found myself standing in awe at some event I had witnessed in my work. My response was to attempt to record these special experiences, but writing in a journal is like talking to yourself, and I seldom wrote as often as I should have, as I saw an unusual pursuit slip by unnoted. People always plied me with questions when they found I was a beekeeper, and there seemed to be a natural curiosity about the bees even among those who were scared to death of them. So I set about to write, to answer all those questions in some organized fashion. The result is Notes from the Beeyard. In the language of beekeeping, a beeyard, or often simply a yard, is a group of colonies. Beeyards are usually situated in out-of-the-way spots on farms and ranches, in orchards, or secluded groves near streams and irrigation ditches. Since most of my work takes place in my beeyards and many of my musings have their origins there, it only seemed appropriate that the column be titled as it is. All of this is by way of introduction, so that you will know from whence I speak and why. Over the next several months, I propose to take you through a season as seen through the eyes of a beekeeper, to share the mystery and magic, the successes, the disappointments, and the unexpected failures. It is a journey I have taken many times, and it has never failed to intrigue me. I hope listeners will all enjoy the trip as well.
I think it went great.
Me too. Good. Yeah, you're the listener, so you can tell how it appeals to the listener, I think.
So my question for you is, what is it like after, I think it's been over 30 years since you wrote this piece? What's it like reading it now?
Well, it reminds me why I embarked upon the path I did, trying to share a year in the life of a beekeeper and bees with people who were not beekeepers. That was my original intent. I was enthralled with beekeeping in a lot of ways, although at its heart, it's just very hard, heavy, physical work. I found it in many cases awe-inspiring, and I wanted to share that wonder with a larger audience. You know how it started. I told you that story, didn't I?
How did it start?
Started with my mother. I started sharing my beekeeping days with her, and of course, she was a loving mother, and it wasn't long before I started getting letters back. "Oh, Tommy, they're wonderful. You should write a book." Yeah. And my mother was relentless, so I had to do something to satisfy her a little, and I approached the editor of the Niwot Tribune that was being resurrected in Niwot, hoping, and I told him, I said, "I hope you're going to tell me this is a horrible idea and I can get my mother off my back." And he said, "No, I think they sound really great." So I did, I think, 35 of them that first year for the Niwot Tribune.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much. It's just wonderful to do this project.
So far, I'm enjoying it. I'm revisiting things that were important to me in the past, and I'm learning things. I don't remember everything that I wrote. I wrote many, many columns, and I think it's going to be very pleasurable.
Thank you for listening. That was episode 1 of Notes from the Beeyard. We'll have episode 2, First Stirrings of Spring, next week. In the meantime, hop on over to notesfromthebeeyard.buzz and subscribe.